and that is translating in financial risk-taking. So in the financial aspect, this risk-taking behavior that we can see with health outcomes and with violence and other types of behaviors actually ends up being also showing up in the financial data. So that's basically what I'm doing in my research, and I'm really fascinated with it. But I'm also in Catholic and Marianist University, and I'm currently working on my teaching. Also, I took a sabbatical last year, and I used it to develop a new course that's called Finance for the Common Good. Fantastic. And we're currently doing in this elective class. What I'm doing is I am covering different aspects of the reason for nonprofits to exist. You know, why is it that we have nonprofits with apart from governments and business? And then from there, we're moving on to what kinds of vehicles are available to people that are interested in advancing social causes, because we have many students that are interested in working in nonprofits and projects.
Let me interrupt you here. I just want to draw out everybody here so we get a sense of who else in the room, and then we'll come back to the discussion. Josh, could you introduce yourself, and then Maria Virginia, and then Brian Corbin?
Sure. So wonderful to be with you all. My name is Josh Daly. As you can see, I'm here in Southern Rhode Island. Kind of two areas of my background that sort of bring me here. So one is that I studied and worked in theology and ethics and ministry, social justice, Catholic social teaching, lived in some Catholic worker communities, and worked with Catholic Campaign for Human Development as a young man early on, and got formed by that sort of stuff. Worked in community development kind of ministry in New Orleans for a number of years, and then shifted I got an MBA and shifted towards business development and more secular economic development sort of work. So now I work for the Small Business Development Center here in Rhode Island. But I was on the board of the Cooperative Development Institute here in New England, always connected to kind of employee ownership and cooperative development. I'm interested in connecting, more traditional economic development, and then also sort of faith-based communities with this kind of work. So, and very much aligned with wonderful things we've got going on here.
Fantastic. Maria Virginia, any reactions, introduction, and then Brian, and then Steve Monty.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm from Argentina. I'm currently an entrepreneur. I have a startup in California, in the US, working with small entrepreneurs, mate producers from Argentina. My background is in business, and also I come from a family working in agriculture, and currently serving as coordinator of the Agriculture and Justice Village for the economy of Francesco. Part of co-leading the Farm of Francesco, that since yesterday we are an LLC, we are a company since yesterday. This was born 100% within the economy of Francesco, so super happy about that. And since this year, I also joined the steering board for the Laudato Si Action platform, which is an initiative from the Vatican. So very happy to be here.
We're so delighted to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. And the Farm of Francesco is remarkable. So it's a testament to what can be possible here in this Francesco economy gatherings. Thank you for being here. Brian, and then Steve, and Gabriel.
Thanks. My name is Brian Corbin. I'm Executive Vice President for Catholic Charities USA in Alexandria, Virginia. I've been here 7 years, but 27 years I was the Director of Catholic Charities in the Campaign for Human Development in Youngstown, Ohio. With many of you know, that was the center of deindustrialization of America, the Rust Belt at its heart. When I took the job in Youngstown, Ohio, 55,000 people had just lost their jobs. And so we had massive depression, physically and materially. So I went there, and the Bishop Malone, asked me to start some cooperatives. So it's not your grandmother's Catholic Charities. He said, I want you to do food kitchens, and I want you to do community development. So with that, we helped start the Ohio Employee Ownership Center. And if anyone knows anything about it, I'm still on the board of the Ohio Employee Ownership Center. We've created 250 worker cooperatives and ESOPs, and I'm also working very closely with Mondragon. And we did some work in Cleveland and created the Evergreen Cooperatives. And we also founded a bank, and I'm still the vice chair of the Development Bank in Ohio. So trying to do some funding, but also development and some hardcore work using the institution of the church called Caritas for those around the world, and Catholic Charities. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Steve and Gabriel.
Hi, I'm Steve Monty. I'm here in Felipe's backyard in Raleigh-Durham. For the last 10 years, I've run a firm and a fund called Solidarity Capital that I started. We've raised capital with 60 investors and made 20 investments. One is a co-op. It's a Eastern Carolina Organics doing business as Happy Dirt. You can buy the produce anywhere up and down the East Coast. I'm pretty significantly engaged right now in several affordable and missing middle mixed income housing developments. So that's kind of a new line of business for my partner and I. But I'm still keenly interested in co-ops and cooperative investing. I haven't quite figured it out. I'm interested in it from the housing perspective for one of our projects, perhaps. But also just to me, it's really new economy 2.0 after all the things that I'm doing that are sort of 1.5. My first 20 years was at IBM, and that was definitely capitalism 101 or economy 1.0. But I'm sort of in the B Corp world now. Our firm is a B Corp. 8 of our 20 investments have been with B Corps. But I think cooperative is a little longer vision out into the future and carries us a little further along the path that Francis is inviting us. So thanks for coordinating this, Felipe.
No, I'm so excited to get more into our discussion, Steve. Thank you. Gabriele, then Francisco, and then Paul and Stephen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gabriel Lara. I'm in Chicago, Illinois, working with the Coalition for Spiritual and Public Leadership. And we are, part of it is working with economic justice churches in the community. Right now, Chicago is going through the Renewing My Church process, which is bringing churches together, consolidating churches. And there is a lot of hurt and healing and sometimes anger and sadness. But at the same time, with this, with Pope Francis, we're really excited about this idea of this vision of coming out of crisis stronger and better. And we're thinking that this gives a great opportunity to build worker-owned co-ops in churches in this time of crisis, really coming out together with being part of this vision of a new economy and a better economy that is more inclusive and better for our people. So I'm really happy to be with you all today.
Pioneering work, Gabriel. I've heard of Michael. I'm glad to have you here. Francisco, and then Paul Baumann, and then Stephen.
All right, hey everyone, Francisco. Everyone calls me Pancho. Based out of Laredo right now. I actually, well, my background, funny enough, is from like my training was really like Techstars. That was really when I was quite young, that was my lean startup. I was built into that. I found out about this thanks to Zebras Unite. I actually come from like a little bit of intersection from like Sunrise Movement and Zebras Unite. So really happy to be here. And right now I'm actually working on something that directly addresses this conversation. I'll keep it short. Comun is trying to democratize crowdfunding. So that's what we're working on right now. We just actually landed an in-house developers that are also cooperatively owned. And that's our focus, democratize the commons by democratizing crowdfunding first. So we are trying to directly address that. And just imagine a GoFundMe, but owned by the public. And that's how, trying to bring as many people together, because it's an ecosystem that we're trying to build, right? At this comun, right? What we call comun. So yeah, really excited to be here and to share more if anyone's interested and to help out wherever I can. Thank you all.
I'm delighted, Pancho. I think we need this desperately. Fantastic to hear about it. Comun. Paul Baumann, Stephen, and then Dale.
Hey, I'm Paul. I'm working with Felipe and Elias on the Ownership Matters newsletter project, and so I'm a freelancer in media work doing that, and so I'm a little bit of an odd fit, but I'm here to listen more than anything because our newsletter is very much concerned with issues, and if you're not subscribed, you'll find that the issue to come out Tuesday expresses this pretty strong terms. So you ought to subscribe.
Thank you. Stephen, and then Dale.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Stephen Donaco. I am Director of Programming for a conscious business accelerator called ShiftCo. So the people who are attracted to our platform are entrepreneurs who want to make the world better. We sort of operate what I'll call para cooperatives in our membership, where entrepreneurs who are serving similar market can come together on projects. And I'm interested in expanding that as part of what I do as director of programming. We have a lot of people in our network who call themselves solopreneurs, which I think my mission is to make that term obsolete because collaboration is really the way that we are truly going to make the world better, I believe. So I'm very interested in this particular group, and then learning more about how to actually give the vision of cooperatives grounded feet so that we can all move forward and evolve. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Dale?
Good afternoon, everyone. Felipe, me, right?
Yes, go.
Okay. Dale Hartz, typically from Miami, Florida, happen to be in Northeast Ohio right now at my father's. Assistant professor of management, really have been interested in probably the last 15 years in triple bottom line leadership, and then more recently looking at as we get further in the fourth industrial revolution, I think there's a greater risk of having people left behind. And so this idea of cooperatives and B Corps and other ways to use business in a new way that does include more people, and rather than pushing people to the edges, is really an interest that I have. And since one of the core commitments is social justice at our university, looking at we can't have social justice without economic justice, and so it's an important topic, and really here to learn more and contribute as I can, because I'm working with tomorrow's leaders.
So helpful. Well, just to kind of frame up the question, and then we have about 10 more minutes that I borrowed us here. Julia started with the case studies of Namaste Solar, the Clean Energy Credit Union, Quechua Impact Fund, Amicus Solar, 4 incredible cooperatives that all emerged. Blake Jones, one of the most prolific co-op entrepreneurs we have in the US, each of them reaching meaningful scale. Namaste Solar, 120 workers, 150 workers now, owners. That's a pretty meaningful worker co-op. In the US, we have the Drivers Co-op, just became the largest worker-owned co-op. It's kind of alternative to Uber and Lyft in New York City through a WeFunder. So Comun, kind of a platform like that, they were able to raise 1.2 million. I think there's experiments like this, and I think at Ownership Matters, we talk about it, the grassroots, close to the ground, there's co-ops bubbling up throughout, and there's many. Few of them are consolidating or growing to meaningful scale, other than the established ones that have been around for 100 years because of policy. I think the rural electric co-ops grew out of policy that really set up those. So a question now is, we as an ecosystem of practitioners, there's many folks in the co-op movement that are coming to awareness of this. We as Francesco practitioners in our many stripes, what are you seeing? Can you see this moment? Do you see the kind of confluence of forces I articulated? What do you think are the countervailing forces? Those are some questions. I want to open it up now to a discussion on that.
This is Brian. I'll just take a stab. I mean, one thing I'm going to go more cultural for a second. I think we have a huge stream, even within Catholicism, of libertarianism emerging, and less Thomism of the common good. So I think there's a value issue that I think we have to work on from the cultural perspective of how do we bring in people who are, it's all about me, or it's just about my rights, and how to see in terms of collaborative work. So I've noticed a change in 34 years just of speech, of the language to do this. So I think the Francisco economy gives us language, again, rooted in the church, but how do we make that into language that people can understand in the community, that's just either find a way to bring in libertarians, and I'm using that word just to use a code for a second, that is just about me, to how to find a way of collaborative value. So that's something that I've been struggling with, and I see even just with philanthropists and donors and just practitioners. So I think just language issues and culture is one area that I think is a countervailing problem, Philippe. But I think we have the language in this group and others to kind of bring that back up again. And we call it Thomism in the Catholic Church.
I sort of I see these confluence of things, and your map was really thought-provoking, Felipe, and I certainly think that way about, here's a whole number of sort of secular organizations advancing employee ownership and cooperative development, and I do see so much energy that way. I'm also on the board of a group called Local Return here in Rhode Island that's around local community investment and building up a community investment fund, and also advancing cooperative development here in the state, trying to advocate move towards an employee ownership center here in the state. And maybe it's my own experience. I don't know how much it resonates for other people, but one thing that really drew me to this group is that I have this sort of faith life and passion for my faith, and it motivates everything that I do. But most of my work is sort of in the secular world, and I don't always feel that those two, in a lot of ways, I think maybe to what Brian was talking about too, the prevailing sort of forces and narrative in the institutional church, in the Catholic Church in the U.S. is a little alienating, sometimes for this type of thinking, which is disappointing, because I think when you look at the rich tradition of Catholic social teaching and the movements inspired by it, and Thomistic philosophy and all sorts of things around, the common good, this is not fringe stuff. And the Catholic worker movement was not a fringe movement. It is like, a very authentic representation of the gospel in a culture that is very far from it. So I just struggle and that's why I was really drawn to this, was how do we sort of connect the faith and the institutional, church with the sort of great secular work that's going on for this kind of cooperative development and social justice, triple bottom line, all these things.
Thank you so much, Josh. Really helpful. I'm curious more. Go ahead, Julia.
I'd just like to address what Brian mentioned about the language and the education, how to get people on board. And developing this research, I just posted on our chat the link so you can all see the research. But one thing I learned from Lake Jones, who is one of the entrepreneurs that envisioned that network, while interviewing him, he said something that really clicked to me, and I think it's easier to people to understand. And it's how we combine like money and see money and the economy, how those things get together. Like Josh was saying, so hard how can we see all coming together and bring unity? It's actually simple. It's about the money. It's like the air we breathe or the food we eat. We need the money to keep the businesses alive, those projects alive, but nobody live to breathe or to eat. That's not the purpose of life. So you gotta have a broader purpose and mission that your organization, your business is trying to achieve, that is larger than just breathe and eat. And so this is kind of how that should be the relationship of money in our economy with the projects and the organizations we're trying to build. And that's how cooperatives try to combine all together, bringing, hey, we are developing something that is economically very interesting, very efficient, has a lot to deliver to the community. And at the same time, we are building this ecosystem based on solidarity and uniting our political choice for democracy with our personal vision of equality and freedom and respect for each human being in this world, because this is currently what's not happening. And we finally find out this. I think most people have found out, well, our system is a future promise for a better future, but this future never arrives. There is something wrong with it, because the promise that has been made for centuries is not here and people are struggling. So how can we fix that? Though we don't need something that is a complete disruption of the entire system. We have those answers already that has been with us for so long that we can just bring people in and to understand the model and educate the communities and the service providers and what they can deliver. And this is something interesting that Colorado has been developing.
I'm going to just interrupt for a couple minutes because I want to call on Mara, who's had her hand up for a little bit, if you don't mind, Julia.
Oh, sure.
Go ahead, Mara. We only have a few minutes here, but I'd love to hear your
Forgive me, I
thoughts.
didn't realize it was persisting. I guess, Julia, I'm really interested in what you had to say too. There's one other thing that I just wanted to put out there in this conversation, which is, I think, Felipe, you pointed to this 500 million dream, and then you also spoke about Drivers Cooperative as being now the largest worker owner co-op, and they are halfway to their $2.5 million raise. So one thing that's very interesting to me that I'm curious to get other people's takes on here is, in our ecosystem, when we're just speaking about US-based enterprises for now, we're talking about dozens, they're in the dozens. So every one that comes along, like Drivers Co-op, I think of our role as acting like barn raisers in we need to have that 2.5 raise filled before we move on to talking about $500 million initiatives. And so here, I guess what I'm a little bit curious to know is if there's alignment around taking a different posture. You know, the VC-backed posture is one in which you can have 99 out of 100 startups fail. But in this space, that equation doesn't work. Every single one, we need to be investing in their success, which means that, you know, what is it going to take for Drivers Co-op to get to that 2.5? And then what is it going to take for us to think about alternative capital? So I just want to put it out there that I think that around investing, there might need to be a different posture that's adopted of ensuring deep care and investment in each of these efforts that's coming aboard, and recognizing that the numbers right now are relatively few in the dozens because it takes the opportunity cost is so high. So I just wanted to pose that, and I'll put Drivers Co-op raise in the chat so that we can actually have an honest conversation at the end of this month, and then discuss why they weren't able to raise, or if they did, you know, how we all contributed to that success, as being a very specific object lesson in everything we're interested in.
Couldn't agree more, Mara. And I think this is an incredible opportunity. And for us to, very accredited or not, everybody can invest here in the Drivers Cooperative. We can all share this with our networks. And it is a huge promise since we understand the countervailing force they're up against. So Mara, I couldn't agree more that at this stage, we all need to be invited and involved. Any kind of final reactions? Questions you want to leave with folks, this group? This is a very interesting conversation, a very diverse group here.
Felipe, is there a standard legal structure for these co-ops, or can it be a C Corp with, you know, good stakeholder ownership?
I'm going to punt that one to Mara or Pancho or somebody else here. Mara?
It's like another 3-hour session, but I'm glad to follow up with you. I'll put my email address in. Jason Weiner has done a lot of innovation around this. So the short answer is there's not one standard answer, which is what makes the opportunity cost so high. So at Zebras Unite, we spent upwards of $100,000 in legal fees to attain the multi-stakeholder structure that we had. And that type of, those types of resources are just out of reach for most enterprises. So the legal innovation is a really critical component.
And Tim, that was part of what I was pointing to in the ecosystem. We just need a common set of docs that everyone can take off the shelf and start with. And that doesn't exist yet. So that's one of the key problems. Steve?
And then Felipe, is there like a Slack channel that we could continue this conversation? Because I'm sure there's lots of
yes,
we're getting some of it right, and still
that is a perfect segue. Let's go back to the big group and let's write that in the chat, and we have a Slack already. We're going to reinvent the Slack. We started 2 years ago. We're going to kind of repurpose it, and we'll have a co-op channel to scaling co-ops here.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, each of these 8 discussions would be great to have a channel on, because
let's head back to the big room here. And if there's anything in the last 60 seconds here you want to share, I'm going to ask everybody to take a moment to write and then share what felt energy in this conversation or what new ideas came to you as you heard. So we can all capture each other's thoughts just in the chat here in a minute. But anything verbally in the last 30 seconds? Steve, you were kind of on the tip of your chair. No? Okay.
I think cooperatives have a bright future just because of the competition for talent. I think there's a narrative and a value proposition that they offer talent it's missing in the places people used to find it, whether it was a, you know, a paternalistic company or a union job or a government job, but human beings need a certain base level of security and community to flourish. And I think cooperatives need to punch up that narrative, and they'll do well.
Pancho, last thought? A young person building something?
Happy to be.
The experience of your life and your business. This is Kevin. Before his TEDx talk, when I met him, he was 19 years old.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I'm gonna actually ask us to mute for a second. And the question I'm gonna ask is, what had energy for you in that past 35 minutes or so? And take a moment to write it in the chat. So we're gonna be quiet for a minute or two and write in the chat what had energy for you in the past 35 minutes. Gabriel, how was that for you?
Oh, that was really good, Felipe. I'm looking forward to follow up with you, and I'm following up with the Connect, also the network of yeah, excellent.
Fantastic, fantastic. Mike, did you get to meet a couple new people today?
I sure did.
Okay.
Looks like I've got many times couple people to meet.
That's great. That's great. Welcome back, everybody. In the last 5 minutes here, we're just about to wrap up. I want to invite Father Jacek to share just a little bit about his journey and Laudato Si action he's leading at the Parish of Immaculate Conception in Durham, and then to kind of give us a final blessing and commissioning in this work as we go forward.
Well, thank you, Felipe. And it's wonderful to be part of this group and to listening to how the Holy Spirit already is moving, renewing the face of the earth, lifting up the poor, and kind of sowing the seeds of hope and transformation. So I'm a Franciscan friar. Also have been involved in justice, peace, and integrity of creation for a long time within the province and within the order. But I would like to kind of focus on local level. About a year ago, I was appointed the pastor of a large, dynamic Franciscan parish in Durham, North Carolina, and we are kicking off Laudato Si action platform, actual next Tuesday. So even though it's been delayed, but we're moving ahead. And incorporating our parochial school and the local community center with MLK, and getting ready for reaching out into the broader community of Durham and creating, identifying those courageous explorers in doing missionary outreach, in listening to not just our parishioners, but people in the community. What are the needs? The cry of the earth, the cry of the poor, and also specific opportunities for action. We hope to stay connected to the broader movement with Economy Francesco, and to look at the issues around integrating that transformation into our liturgical life, into education of children and youth, and creatively re-envisioning our economy as well at the local level. So just wanted to, as we preparing to celebrate the feast of St. Francis, we remember how St. Francis was responding to the call. Francis revealed my house that is falling into ruin. And what we are evidencing right now is that the world as we know it, in terms of not just ecologically speaking, but the the systems are falling into ruin, and something new is emerging. And each one of you, each one of us is being called to have a part to play in renewing the face of the earth. So as we, over the next few days, as we celebrate the feast of Saint Francis, let us be aware that the same Spirit of God that spoke to Francis from the crucifix in San Damiano is now speaking to us, calling us to be troubadours of hope, men, women and men of action, whose contribution, as small or as large as they may be, are part of God's plan to renew the face of the earth and to have the rivers of life flow through our cities, our nation, and our world, and contribute to the healing of God's creation and healing of the nation. So may we continue to lift each other up and continue to share in the bread of the communion of ideas, but also of specific actions.
Thank you so much, Father Jacek. Just want to greet you with the sign of peace. So if you all want to just raise your hands in a sign of peace, however we can virtually here, to bless each other on the journey. And you'll be hearing from Elizabeth, Elias, myself, and Evie again. Thank you so much for this wonderful sacred encounter today. Such a rich blessing to be with you, to encounter how many flourishing lives are being moved in new ways. And may we all inspire each other to greater action and fidelity to the Spirit. So amen. May you go in peace.
Amen.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.